Greetings, everyone. Mario Blandini here, founder of Resolve Networks and the host of the Comeback podcast, where we explore hopeful thoughts and perspectives involving the good deeds of people. My mission's simple. I want to prove that good is more than charity, and when we're united and engaged by a common purpose, I believe everyday people will be the decisive difference in achieving greater good, because we're stronger together. And my hope, those same good deeds by volunteers will play a part in they themselves reaching their highest potential. Joining me for a discussion today is Dean Ronzoni, who is with the Leave No Trace Center for Outdoor Ethics. How you doing, Dean?
Good, I'm doing well. Thanks for having me, Mario.
Awesome. Well, I know that you live at altitude in Boulder, Colorado, which makes it easier to be hopeful, but I always ask every guest, do you feel hopeful?
I do.
All right. So I also start off every episode by asking for people to describe their comeback story, because our lives are a story arc in and of themselves. And I'm almost kind of jealous you fell into a purpose-based job earlier in your life, right? So talk about yourself and your comeback story, and that'll kick off our discussion today.
Yeah. So a little bit about me. I mean, I went to college in Boston, and I grew up in New York, and so I've always wanted to come west. I've spent a little bit of time taking family vacations, but I'd never really been to Colorado. It was always on my mind. And after college, I decided to just move out here blind, moved into the town of Breckenridge, and decided to just kind of become a ski bum for a little bit and just kind of live life and enjoy things and just kind of take a little time after college and see what I really wanted to do. I fell into the ski industry, actually, working at Copper Mountain for several years. I believe 4 years I was working in the reservations department there. And, you know, I was living a good quality of life. I really enjoyed it. It was a good job. And I was able to really get outside almost every single day and live in the heart of the mountains in Colorado. After that, I actually commuted over Vail Pass into Vail every day and worked on multi-million-dollar architecture projects for ski resorts. And so as exciting as that job was, it really didn't seem to be the actual fit for me. It was pretty high stress. It was pretty high pressure. And there was a lot of learning on the job. But I wasn't really connected to my passion, which is being in the outdoors. And so that brought me to move to Boulder. And as I was searching for jobs to move to Boulder, I stumbled upon Leave No Trace. And I actually pinged them and said, hey, I'm looking to get a job in Boulder. I really want to intern and learn about the nonprofit world. I hadn't worked for a nonprofit before. I hadn't volunteered for a nonprofit. So that was really my first time really learning about the nonprofit world and really learning about Leave No Trace at the same time. I was not new to the outdoors, and I did have an ethic at the time that I feel like really translated into that role, but I really feel like I found a niche for myself. And fast forward 11 years, I'm still at Leave No Trace in a director level, working with corporations all around the world to instill Leave No Trace into what they do internally and out facing to the general public.
Yeah, not to say that I'm jealous, but I tried to get my wife to move to Tuolumne County and the Stanislaus National Forest. She likes the suburbs a little bit too much. So we now live north of Dallas. And so I don't have the same opportunity you do, but certainly have the same passion for the environment. And an environment's something that connects all of us, right? We are all citizens of this one rock in the middle of space separated by long distances between anywhere else. This is our home. And the idea of Leave No Trace is something I think people could get excited about. What excites you about it?
I mean, Leave No Trace it's exciting because it's a spectrum, you know, it's a code of ethics that I live by, and everyone has their own code. It's not the right and wrongs. There's no law around, you know, you need to do this in order to practice Leave No Trace. Anyone getting into the outdoors, you know, from your stepping out onto your city streets, if you're in Boston, Massachusetts, to, walking out into the Flatirons, which are my background here in Boulder, Colorado, you can practice Leave No Trace in your daily life. And doing that really, our research shows that it connects people actually to the outdoors. There's a quality of life there. There's a happiness that the outdoors brings me. And if I can even get outside on a busy work day for 5 minutes and walk around the block, listen to the birds, just kind of walk around and just look at the sky, that brings me a higher quality of life, I feel. And that's what really connects me. And I feel like Leave No Trace really does that, connects people with the outdoors, but also provides an ethic to that.
Yeah, well, speaking about the idea of just getting outside for your own personal health, one of the things that we've experienced this year in 2020 is that people actually get out and walk more often. And I happen to agree with you, Dean, that your outdoors starts literally the moment you leave your front door. And that with the Zero Trace app that I've developed, it's the idea that having that Leave No Trace mentality can give you a lot of great value. And I'm hoping that as more people come to understand where they fit on that spectrum of ethics that you described, that they themselves will also value this thing, because we only protect things that we consider valuable, right?
That's correct. Yeah. And we only protect things when it's also easy and convenient. So, we want to show how valuable these cherished places are, from your backyard to your national parks, and really get people to think about their own impacts, but also make it easy and fun. If it's fun, just like the app you've been developing, that's fun, that's exciting, and you're doing good. And that really starts to really hammer it home that, like, hey, I can do this in my daily life, whether I'm in the app or I'm bringing my reusable shopping bags to the grocery store.
Exactly. And this idea that we as humans have become, a pandemic aside, which has caused us to go outside more often probably, but this idea that we probably spend less time outside than in the history of humanity, in the sense that we tend to have, you and I, we're both knowledge workers. We're not out. You used to go out and work on projects outside, but we're inside quite a lot, and we spend a lot of time on our devices. It's really a choice, right? I hope people remember that they could choose to spend a couple minutes outside doing some things. And to the point you made, that outside is our shared space, and there's things you can do to improve it. So let's go a little bit deeper into the Leave No Trace Center for Outdoor Ethics. Talk about what someone should know. They can go to lnt.org naturally, but hearing it from you, what really is the reason why they want to learn more and consume the content that you guys produce?
Yeah, well, let me preface your question with Leave No Trace. We're research based. Not everybody knows that.
You mean actual science?
Leave No Trace is based on actual science.
All right. I'm a big science fan too. I think science is good, and hopefully it's the kind of science that we can all agree on, because darn it, this is where we live. Let's agree on that science. I think everybody would agree leaving it as good or better than where you found it is a great way. But yeah, talk about that science, and then what really people can learn by understanding their spot on that ethical spectrum.
Yeah, and so when I say science-based, we've looked at reports from soil compaction rates to figure out what's a durable surface. We consistently do research. We're providing research. We have a new research study almost every year, whether we're researching zero waste in national parks or youth perception around Leave No Trace and leaving what you find. We provide the education behind that, and that's really our product. That's what people are coming to us to learn, and that is what leavenotrace.org is. Our website is just full of, it's full of information that anyone can come in and digest, whether you're a first-time user to the outdoors and you've never been outside of your city block, and you want to learn more about what you can do in your city park, or it's your first time going into a national park, or your 100th time. Leave No Trace is applicable for everyone in all situations, but you do need to educate yourself, and so that's what we do. Is we not only create the education, but we also disseminate it. So we do that We do that in person when we're allowed to. Unfortunately, 2020 has been a little different. So we've had to pivot. Instead of live events, we do a lot more webinar, but also creation of content, simple, easy, digestible. But also we go beyond that. I mean, that you can take a 5-day course and become a Leave No Trace master educator and teach other people how to leave no trace as well. Peers are actually educators who have taken courses on Leave No Trace and decided that, hey, they want to either teach the general public, or maybe there's a school teacher that wants to teach their classroom and kids. And we support that. I mean, that's really the majority of the work that we do. We work with the local land management agencies. We work with educators of all kinds. We work with the general public. You kind of name it. We've probably worked with them to really instill the Leave No Trace ethic and our teachings and education, and catered to whichever sport or landscape specific. So that's also kind of the cool part too. What you might do in Moab, Utah is probably going to be a little bit different than what you're going to do in Rocky Mountain National Park. So the ethic, the education changes based on also location, the landscape, and then also sport specific too.
Yeah, and I just want your opinion for someone. I've obviously gone and educated myself. I don't think it's that hard. I think it's a fairly easy thing. And as G.I. Joe used to tell us, knowing is half the battle. And so this idea of just having that simple knowledge, on a scale of 1 to 10, what do people say to you in terms of learning this? Because it's probably not a very big investment to educate yourself a little bit, but leave a much bigger value in terms of reducing impact, if that's a weird sentence to say. But the whole idea is to, per the name, I think it's so self-explanatory, leave no trace. But in order to do that, you kind of have to know what you're doing. How accessible do you think this is? Because I happen to think it really is, and we want to encourage people to learn more, right?
Yeah, I mean, all of the information is on our website. We do have a online store where we do sell booklets, and we sell all different types, from the quick and easy to the in-depth, Leave No Trace. And so the investment for any person would be basically time. There is no cost. If you do want to take a 5-day course, there is a cost for that. But if you want to just familiarize yourself with our 7 principles, or learn what to do in bear country, or look at, social media guidelines, we have that information for free on our website. So it just takes your time to go there and educate yourself. But if you want to be educated by us directly, we have online awareness workshops, or when we are in person, we do have a list of all of our events, so people can go to our public events. And we do a lot of service projects too. So when we are back up and running, we do have those on our event calendar to see what's in your area that you can come and ask us questions, get your hands dirty next to us. But it is easy. I mean, you are right about that. Like I mentioned earlier, if people aren't going to do it if you don't make it easy. Right. And so, you can have a very high level Leave No Trace knowledge and just very surface and say, okay, leave what you find. I'm not going to take anything from the outdoors back home with me. You can go very much into the science behind that if you would like. But again, not everyone is looking to do that. But our research shows that 9 out of 10 people in the outdoors are uninformed about their impacts. And that's really where we come in, and that's where we're trying to reach more and more users, especially in 2020. We're seeing a lot more first-timers. So we are writing our content a lot more for first-timers into the outdoors as well. Leave No Trace has always been applicable for everybody, but we are changing that language a little bit more to be even more open and direct for anyone looking for this information.
Yeah, one of my most favorite memories is I say that kind of tongue-in-cheek, my daughter and my 3 nephews, the 4 of them, I took them on a horseback trip into the wilderness. And to be honest, the hardest thing they had a time doing was the kind of leave no trace part, because the way they behave on a daily basis, which is kind of weird. You tell them, like, parents are always saying, hey, don't throw your stuff there and pick that up and don't do that. It's funny that it's almost like these leave no trace principles help you leave a better life inside doors too, right? It's pretty just good best practices stuff. And so I found that they took to it, and the appreciation of being able to experience that was just great. And the national parks have very clear guidelines on how you do a horseback trip. Because you're still allowed to bring horses. You can't bring anything else that's motorized. But you yourself practice rock climbing and doing skiing. Talk a little bit about those two activities and what people would need to know to do their part to leave no trace. Just kind of to whet the appetite before they go learn a little bit more themselves.
Yeah, well, lucky enough, I live in a rock climbing mecca, Boulder. So there is maybe 5 different zones that you can go. The rock is all different. The approaches are different. And you usually meet other users on the trail too, hikers or people going out for a picnic or, taking photos of the flat irons. So really a lot of the rock climbing here in my backyard, is intertwined with a lot of other users doing something else. And so you do encounter a lot of people that are on the same trails, but it is a little different once you get to the cliff. I mean, you try to stay on, you do stay on the trail. You pick up your pet waste, you access, the climbing area, but then you have to think about things like staging. Where am I going to put my backpack? Where am I going to tie up my pet? Is there anyone else around? Do we have to be considerate of other visitors or wildlife? We do have peregrine falcons here, so am I allowed to be in this area? And that comes in the plan ahead and prepare stage of, hey, are there closures on this cliff band right now? And so you have to really kind of think in a 360 mindset to make sure you're making the right decisions when you're out there. And it does eventually become secondhand when you start really practicing and thinking about your impact. But like I said, 9 out of 10 people aren't always aware of their impacts. I've had plenty of friends that I go out with that have thought that it's okay to leave an apple core on the ground, but there's no apple trees here for hundreds of miles. So, that wouldn't be an appropriate thing to do. And sometimes you are, reminding. But then once you remind them once, they say, oh, I didn't even know that. I thought it was okay because it'll biodegrade, and so that's where we really want people to start educating themselves. And that's what we educate on as well, to get people really thinking about that type of impact and having that kind of mindset. Now, if I went and took a paddleboard to one of the reservoirs around here, that would be a whole different story. It would be a whole different thing I have to think about. I have to start thinking more about invasive species and how to actually wash my paddleboard, especially if I was going to bring it, to Wyoming the next weekend where I'm in a different area with, and I don't want to spread those invasives. So you really have to kind of keep thinking, keep reminding yourself, questioning yourself a little bit and saying, like, am I doing the right thing? But you're right. I mean, earlier you said in your last question, hey, I'm going to go to the grocery store and bring my reusable bag. And because that's what I did when I was in Yosemite National Park last summer, and you start thinking about that, but that's the connection of nature into your daily life. Mm-hmm. You can start practicing leave no trace in your daily life by using reusable products simply. And that to me connects me with my outdoor experiences on a daily basis.
Yeah. And I think that the idea behind a gaming platform that gamifies good and turns good deeds into money that go to charity. I'll ask you a question about how the Leave No Trace invests those things. But before getting there, this idea that if people didn't throw trash on the ground outside their home, but still in their community, there would be no trash on the ground. Yet there's trash on the ground. So it's like one of these conundrum sort of things. And it's my belief, as I said in the show open, that it's really the good deeds of people that can make a decisive difference in how we can create more good. So in addition just to the idea, not everybody can practically have reusability. If you go to a convenience store, they don't dispense products in reusable containers, right? And maybe that's just the nature of convenience. And I think all of us, whether you're having stuff shipped to your house or you're going to a retail location to buy products, there is kind of packaging there. Maybe it's this ideology that maybe people can't make a connection. Like what your community is no different than nature, and if you wouldn't do it in nature and in wild areas because you wouldn't want to hurt anything, couldn't the same thing apply to how we live our lives every day? I'm just thinking it can make the world a better place.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely applies. And that's where, you can bring Leave No Trace into your home. It is tricky at times. You go to a gas station and you might have an aluminum can and you can't recycle it there. Like I personally make sure I just leave that in my Subaru and recycle it when I get home. And there are communities that you might go to that don't have such a great recycling program.
Well, Texas is different than California, that's for sure. I coming from California, it's different. I'm not saying it's one's good or bad, but nonetheless, you talk about the convenience factor. Maybe convenience would help, but isn't part of doing a good deed maybe doing something that may not be perfectly convenient?
Yeah, exactly. And that's where also convenience, like, it's convenient to buy a multi-bag of chips instead of buying one big bag and putting that into separate containers for a hike. That might be a little bit less convenient, but if you think about your buying patterns and you think about waste, you might say, okay, I will repackage and I will take that extra step. And that sometimes for some people that's easy and some people it's not. And that's kind of where do you live on the spectrum? But if you go out and you don't pack out your other bag that you replenish your chips in, then that's a problem.
It defeats the purpose, right?
Exactly. So again, it's really thinking about your behaviors and saying like, am I okay with that, and how can I be better?
Right.
And that usually gets people thinking to do better.
And we've been given brains, right? We don't need to outsource convenience to something else, right? I think that you're right. For us, it's more just about putting thought in. Because I just honestly believe, Dean, that people really do want to do the right thing. People want to do good. And maybe it's just awareness. Like, heck, there's not a day that goes by that my wife doesn't make me aware of something I could probably do better. And for that, I love her. And I don't take it the wrong way. I take it in this spirit that it's given. That's why I love your cause at Leave No Trace. As we go to wrap up, talk a little bit about how volunteers and donations drive your operations, because people naturally want to know if they're out there turning their game coins into good for a charity. I believe you guys are above reproach as far as this stuff goes. And I'd just be interested in your thoughts. When you talk to people at a dinner party, hey, what is it that y'all do? And obviously you get paid, as you should, because you're a big part of how the operation works. But talk a little bit about how both volunteers and donations, because I assume both of them play a role in what y'all do.
Right. Well, we have a full-time staff here in Boulder, and then we also have traveling teams, and they travel around the country. They actually camp almost 200 nights a year.
Where do I get that job?
I think we will be hiring at some point in time here when we figure out, life back on the road. But so we have two arms. The standard staff here in Boulder is always working on curriculum development. How can we work better with children? How can we, what more research do we need to add? And how can we fund that? So a lot of the funding goes to supporting those operations, building new kits, building more content. Certainly, we have a large social following. We have a website. We're always updating everything. So really, that's one of the biggest support structures. We are not government funded. We don't receive any governmental funding. We're a political organization. So anyone should feel free to be able to support Leave No Trace, we do have a strong membership base of about 8,000 members. And then we do have a lot of corporate partners. We work with about 65 different corporations right now, but worldwide, including other nonprofits, schools, and universities, we have over 600 partners. And so we are funded through individuals and our partners, which allows us to go out and provide free education for the general public. And then we also work with the land management agencies as well. So that's where a lot of the funding allows us to work with them, so they can either install trailhead signage, or we can train them so that way they can use Leave No Trace as an avenue for educating their land users. People who are coming into a national park, and they might say, okay, how can we implement Leave No Trace? So that's where a lot of our work really comes into. And then, of course, there's the in-person trainings, which are on hold right now, but hopefully early in 2021, we'll be back out there. And all of our funding is, that's 100% free. Those programs are underwritten. So we're able to go out and do service projects. We're able to go out and work with the community. We can go into a classroom or to an outing club at a university or a large farmer's market and provide free education and give away free resources as well.
All right. Well, it's been my pleasure, Dean, having you on. One of my second biggest passion beyond veterans, because they're humans, and just people in general, because I do believe that it's really us being stronger together. If we have a common interest, or even better, common purpose, we could solve most anything. And as you mentioned, it's the idea that's really the most powerful thing, and your content gives people what they need to know to turn that idea into actions in their daily lives. So I just want to thank you for your time today. And for anybody else, they can go to lnt.org to learn more information. And for anybody who wants to see more resources go to your organization, they can download the Zero Trace app and make their local community cleaner today as a means of driving a cleaner overall community in the future. So with that, I thank you a lot, Dean, for your time.
Thank you, Mario. I appreciate it.
All right. That comes to close our latest discussion, where we talk about thoughts and perspectives that allow us to improve most anything that could use improvement, powered by the good deeds of people. And I'm always happy to share my thoughts as well as those of experts that are working with my company to do good. And with that, I encourage you, if you love the Leave No Trace idea, you can learn more at lnt.org. If you're interested in doing some local community cleanup that can earn coins that turn into cash for nonprofits, I'd encourage you to download the Zero Trace app or text Zero Trace with a 0, or you can spell it out. Both work, to 56525. Thank you a lot for joining, folks, and I look forward to discussing more topics of interest on the Comeback podcast.